Welcome to the Real CP Show. I'm your host, CP. Today's topic: HBCU wants to help Ukrainian and international students basically out for free. Today's topic: HBCU wants to help Ukrainian and international students out for free. Supremacists is brilliant. Is brilliancy. Supremacists are brilliant. Why was HBCUs overall started? Hmm? Why was HBCUs overall started? Was it just for the fun of it? No, of course not. What? Because they wanted to segregate themselves? Because the blacks wanted to be anti-American, right? Or show how anti, predominant-based culture they were, right? Of course not. Since African ancestors Native blacks have been some of the most patriotic people in this country. Or was it because, they just felt that they were, supreme over personnel within the predominant culture? Or did they feel like, hey, HBCUs are going to be the premier college over the predominant basis of culture college? Of course not. Of course not, right? Was HBCUs supposed to be dealing with what we call Hispanics? Of course not. Was it supposed to be dealing with personnel what we call Asians? Of course not. Was it supposed to be personnel we call alternative lifestyle categories? Of course not. Was it supposed to be personnel that we supposedly call Native Americans? Definitely, of course not. Because in each of those groups, there are Afro-Asiatic Hispanics, Afro-Asiatic Asians, obviously Native Black Indians. So what else? Because what? African ancestors, Native Blacks were denied violently, informal, violently, politically, etc., from going to what most predominant base colleges that did not want them in, or did not want the American blacks within various types of predominant base colleges controlled by predominant base personnel. Because if African ancestors, Native Black people were supposed to be treated equally, then there would be no purpose of having to have had HBCU started, would it? Now, remember, this would be for the people who already know, but none of the person who don't know, especially from different other cultures and ethnicities, and even none of the personnel within alternative lifestyle category. These kind of things are overall not taught. See, this is why you have that demonicness, a deflectionary tactic with that thing called critical race theory, right? You got people that's anti-critical race theory, right? Just like demonic fools, right? Because they do not want true American history, especially with the black pain in there. No, we don't want to talk about that. We just want to just white coat it. You know what I'm saying? We just want to white coat the American history. Now, I can't be mad at that because you have no other personnel that has such demonic warpness ingrained in them, because some of their foremothers and forefathers had ingrained self-hatred, demonic type of thought pattern within their own selves. So it just, the apple, right, did not fall far from that person. right, for most of the time. So in this topic about the HBCU wants to help Ukrainian and international students out for free, right? I mean, how insulting that is. So the thing about it, let's go over what this HBCU in general is about. They were founded in 1868 in Virginia. As I was reading about some of the information about that HBCU, for the 2021 through 2022 undergraduate tuition, room and board, because there's some key words in there, tuition, room and board, right? It was close to about $30,000. Let me repeat this. 2021 and 2022 undergraduate tuition, room and board for students, close to $30,000 again. $30,000 close to it. What would be common sense, well, right now on this, anyway. Blacks make up close to 95% of this HBCU in Virginia. Now, how many of those same numbers of students attending now are alumni that paid tens of thousands every year, tens of thousands every semester, right? How many attended some type of summer classes, right? Paying money for those summer classes, if those things are offered. So regardless, now quite enough personnel were not going to pay, just saying current time, going to pay close to $30,000 per year, right, in cash. Of course not. In credit cards. Of course not. So overall, this amount of the HBCU, just like many other colleges and people that go to those different colleges, they said they had to get loans or a combination of loans and grants, with very few exceptions, being able to have a full ride scholarship. In general, very small. So this HBCU, so you talking about the person that, let me read something. Let me paraphrase something, okay? So the person talked about how, in a humanitarian effort to help those college students and families affected by the current conflict in Ukraine, this HBCU opposition person had announced that it will invite 50 to 100 Ukrainian and international college students presently studying in Ukraine to continue their education on HU campus this summer. Ukrainian and international college students affected by the combat will be able to attend classes at this particular HBCU for the 2022 summer session. Receive room, board, and tuition for the summer. Free, right? And have the option to stay at this HBCU at the regular tuition and fees once the summer session is over. What an insult. So freeness to these numbers of Ukrainian students and international students that have the opportunity to be able to go to this HBCU for free for the summertime. While how many, again, current students, previous students, alumni students, tens of thousands of dollars that they had to sit, that they have to still pay for, right? Monthly, right? From getting those loans. Where's their reparations at? What do you mean by that? Because to sit there and help out some Ukrainian personnel and international students 50 to 100, that is reparations for other people. And then to be at an HBCU, what an insult that a person in a higher position, and I ain't just that person, their supremacists control their strings as well. But just the insult, because again, supremacists is so brilliant, the most awesome mental manipulation force that has ever existed. That is ever existed. So the thing about it is that this person in higher position or personnel in those high position at the HBCUs, just getting their strings pulled. That's all it is. By supremacists. Because you're not going to hear some gigantic amount of conversation about predominant controlled institutions. They're not going to do all that. They'll keep that stuff kind of on the slow lane behind the scenes overall. So supremacists being brilliant, right? They know how insulting it is. They sit there and laugh, right? They're going to allow 50 to 100, wink, wink, right? Only 50 to 100, wink, wink, to go to an HBCU basically for free in the summertime. And think about this for a second. How many HBCUs had gotten data boomed type of rhetoric put upon them by racial terrorist people for the last several months? Let me say it again. The predominant base owning various parts of media were very, very, very overall quiet on this, because this is what the demonics do. They minimize black pain because they have their own 1,000 different ways of agenda. And for millions of African ancestors, Native blacks don't even realize it. So the supremacists have so much control of various parts of various certain sections of HBCUs that the students suffer. Because you still got people asking, well, what's the need for HBCUs? And the question I would respond back with logical sense was, what was the purpose of having HBCUs? Why were they needed? They shouldn't have been even needed. Is that not correct? Right? And let me tell you what they would do when you come up with, see, supremacists and their little parrot minions and some gullible freaking people in various parts of society. They're very ignorant and naive, and some of them really do know, but they don't like for people to give them logical responses. This is what they would do. Right? The super cackling, right? Because they don't have any logical response. Because there's no logical response on that, right? It's like this for a second. It's just like let me show you something. So because if you ask, let me phrase this. Within America, this cannot be said enough as well. The population of Ukrainian American people, be it legal or whatever on that, makes up only less than 1%. I said less than 1%. According to statistics, Ukrainian American people make up less than 1% in America. If I remember correctly, plus or minus, it was only like between 43, 44 million, plus or minus, for the country of Ukraine, the demographical population. So you got numbers of Ukrainian personnel that are trying to get out to the Ukraine, right? It's understandable. Right? Now here it is. You got an HBCU. Welcome. Hey, come here. 50 to 100. Wink, wink. Only, right? Come over to this HBCU, and we're gonna give you free room and tuition and books for your summer session. But don't worry about it. Even though before you would even heard about the Ukraine, even before most people even caught wind of your thought pattern, what Ukraine is or where Ukraine is at, you still got African ancestors, Native blacks still going through black pain. Let me show you something. Let me show you something.
Oh, I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I was going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. Oh, it rained so hard the day I left, the weather it was dry. The sun so hot I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I've come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. Oh,
So I ask, you got numbers of Hispanic personnel have never seen or know who this person is. You got numbers of Asian personnel that don't know who this person is out there and show. You got numbers of what we call Native American don't know who this person I just showed. You certainly got border breaking illegal immigration personnel that do not give a care about nothing. Sure don't care about black pain. Sure don't know anything about that. And so that would also include you got numbers of Ukrainian personnel, even within America, have never seen who this person was. And those international students within that 50 to 100 people, wink, wink, that's supposed to come over, only, right? Surely don't know anything about the true American black pain system in America. None of that seeing the Statue of Liberty and people crying and, oh, the land of milk and honey. Oh, it's going to help out the immigrants. None of that nonsense. Because what was going on when the Statue of Liberty was being brought over from overseas to construct, right? What was still going on in those late 1800s? What was going on? Black pain. Lynchings of black folks, right? Still segregated. Still getting lynched all over the place, right? This is before many numbers of Hispanics were even thought of. This is before numbers of Asian personnel who surely wasn't even having a conversation about, because overall amount of the small population was more geared toward the West Coast. So they wouldn't even have there wasn't even conversation about them a lot of times on the East Coast. But what was going on in those late 1800s on those East Coast still, right? Prior to only a few years before the Statue of Liberty was constructed, the African ancestors, Native blacks, were still in formal segregation. That was a civil war. And think about this. So this is the insulting part. So much black pain is still going on right now. And you had to have HBCUs where you had numbers of American blacks that wanted to attend, didn't have to have fear or super black stress upon them because of situations that was going on toward them. There was a black woman that was one of the first black women, some to that effect, that went to one of the colleges in Alabama, and she had passed on not too recently ago. And I'm talking about this around the 50s. And she was still having threats put against her and one of her friends, basically of trying to get themselves enrolled into this college in Alabama. This is not in 1950s. So this is the same time frame that's going on with Emmett Till. Still, formal segregation was still going on in the 50s. But the same darn time, right? Same time. How many Ukrainian personnel never even heard anything about that? How many numbers of Asian personnel have heard about that? How many numbers of border breaking illegal immigration personnel ain't heard anything about formal segregation that was still going on in the 50s toward the black folks? But same time, this HBCU and however numbers of other HBCUs that are not talked about that we really won't really know unless it's put out there, that may be also doing some similar situations. Who knows? But regardless, I just want to do this show for this because it is such an insult, right? To have 50 to 100 Ukrainian and international students that's going to go to an HBCU. What an insult, right? That would have no idea why an HBCU really was formed. And they never could really feel it because they can't understand black pain, but they're going to be able to go there and enjoy a free summer. Tuition and books and room and board and things like that for free. Unless the premises say, well, we better hold on for a second because there's a lot of heat going on. But supremacy is brilliant because, again, mathematically, they already know this is already calculated a few percentage points already that this would happen. They say, well, don't worry about those niggeros and niggerettes, complain as they usually do. Don't worry about them, you know. So either we'll sit there and we'll put out to our control media that there are some changes, and that will placate those niggeros and niggerettes and stuff like that, while we'll still continue to keep on doing our stuff on the side with that HBCU or other HBCUs. Or otherwise than that, we just say, forget those niggeros and niggerettes. We're going to keep doing it. Because they can't stop what we're doing, because we are supreme over those niggeros and niggerettes, and they'll never get it. So I just wanted to do a show on that, or do a show. Yes, I want to do a show on this part. I mean, HBCU wants to help Ukrainian and international students out for free, right? I wanted to try to read something that I like to be able to usually read on my podcast, because it also has a lot to do with so much logical sense on this scenario. It's called The White Man's Bible, 1981. Not the brown man's Bible, not the Asian man, not the yellow man's Bible, not the brown man's Bible, not the purple man's Bible, excuse me, but the white man's Bible, 1981. The N word or N word. We use the term N word deliberately in this book and recommend its usage in general conversation. As we have stated in a previous chapter, the second dumbest creature on the face of the earth is one who can't or won't recognize his enemies. And the dumbest of all is that creature which will actively collaborate with its enemies for the destruction of its own race. Mm, 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 mm. The American blacks only have half a generation to one generation left. I stand by what I say. I mean what I say. The African ancestral Native blacks only have half a generation to one generation left before complete overallness, destruction of any type of collective unity. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. For so many generations, no reparations, and even until now, when they came up with the HR 40 bill, that's been sitting there, and that bill's been kicked down the road several different times, even though it's been going on for decades. When it first was brought up, and you got various personnel within the predominant culture, the ones who know who they are, and some sellout non-black folks, even at that time, they said, no, we don't want to do that right now. And there it is, decades later, right? And still nothing's basically happened with HR 40. That was supposed to be about reparations, where it really was not, because it still was talking about only trying to get a commission to start to study reparations. What you got to study? Did they sit there and study about that anti-Asian stuff, right? Which was just propaganda. There was some, yes, numbers of Asian personnel that suffered. Of course it is. Do not some parts of Hispanic suffer? Of course some of them do. Do not numbers of some Native Indians, or what we call Native Indians, do they not suffer? Of course. Do anybody come close to generational black pain? Of course not. But how many still are able to get whatever amount of free resources, be it formal or informal, while specifically geared toward them? Alternative lifestyle category, personnel who know who they are, right? The numbers I'm talking about, the ones who know who they are that get resources, right? And also can bring up your anti-alternative lifestyle category if you don't believe in the lifestyle. But how many special ones within the predominant culture won't talk about, and some of them only haven't even heard of the great James Baldwin, who was part of alternative lifestyle category. But first and foremost, he was black, and still he caught racial, you know what, first. Before he was about a turn lifestyle category, he called you know what first for being a black man. But see, a lot of times, various person that was in a turn lifestyle category don't want to talk about turn lifestyle categories. Looked about, especially black, is looked about black first, and then our turn lifestyle category second. But unfortunately, there are still some ones within that area that still don't get it. But that's a different topic. But I was just wanting to bring up this show topic because it's a real topic, because that continue to keep going on. If you got black folks in high positions that sit there and can't help themselves, the ones who know they're talking about, with very few exceptions, that got to sit there and try to help others out first. And in the back rooms of back offices or back buildings or whatever it is, or various type of exclusive clubs that many numbers of American blacks will never be able to reach, that they sit there and laughing at American blacks because they're saying, wow, those Negroes and Negroes overall very easily be fooled, with very few exceptions. That's why, again, half a generation to one generation left for the complete overall destruction of the American black culture overall, with very few exceptions. I thank you for tuning in to the Real CP Show.